And I also love the moral of the story, like answer Craigslist ads, be on reality
You
TV shows,
never know
and you
what's gonna
can
take
have
you.
your dreams. Like
I
that
don't
is
know,
not.
but yeah, you got to be careful now. You'll end up somewhere crazy.
Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watch Your Pass, and today I'm joined by directors Kendall and Vera Whelpton, who are the directors and stars of The Haunting Lodge, which is coming to digital on demand October 17th, 2023. I'm going to talk to them right now, and while you're watching, if you can like and subscribe to this channel, that would be fantastic. I'll spend a lot. Thank you. So thanks so much for joining me. Today I've got Kendall and Vera Whelpton, the directors of The Haunting Lodge, which is coming to digital on demand on October 17th, 2023. It is an investigation into this never-before investigated hunting lodge that may or may not have some supernatural phenomena happening. Kendall and Vera bring their expertise to it. They discover a lot of really interesting things and have some really, really cool footage. So I am very excited to talk to you about this and learn more about what happened. And thanks so much for joining me.
Hey.
Awesome.
Hello.
Awesome. So first question, like, I'm just very, how did you find this lodge? How did you kind of get involved in this project? It seems like maybe John had some pull in that, but I wasn't exactly sure how you like came to this area.
Yeah, so John Doherty, who is a local paranormal investigator, he was kind of out exploring just the countryside in a small town in Georgia that he had wanted to go check out. And John found an abandoned house that he was just checking out with his cameras and looking for paranormal activity, taking some photos and whatnot. And the owner of the land got wind that somebody was trespassing on his land. So he went out to go check out who was on his property. And sure enough, John was in the house, and yeah, that's when he was like, oh, hey, you're trespassing on my property. And yeah,
Well,
it was
John answered. He just quickly answered, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm just looking for ghosts," because it was an abandoned house. So the owner kind of got a kick out of that, and he was like, "All right, these guys." But anyway, he goes, "Well, if you're looking for a haunted house, you're on the wrong one, because the haunted house over here is over there, down the road." And he invited him to go to the haunted house. I mean, to me, that's wild because, there's a stranger coming in. Yeah, you're trespassing, but there's a stranger coming in with the gun, and it's like, come follow me, I'll show you the real haunted house, and don't went anywhere.
Well, yeah, no,
So,
that seems like just a very, very lucky occurrence, right? Because yeah, you hear the story was trespassing on someone's property. Someone came with a gun. You're like, okay, this is not going to end well. But he's like, hey, like, I don't know if it's like Southern hospitality or maybe it's just like John's like good-natured character, but like somehow he was able to convince him that he didn't have any nefarious purposes, and also to like show him his other property, which is amazing.
yeah.
exactly.
And so like, I don't know, I guess you've done a few of these documentaries. It seems like some of them have been very prominent places, but generally, like, how do you find where you want to do your investigations? Is it just kind of word of mouth, or do you kind of go out on your own? Like, or is it all over? Maybe it's everything. Maybe it's like sometimes you have people you've worked with tell you about it. Sometimes you kind of like go out on your own if you're looking for an excursion.
Kind
Uh,
of all of those. Yeah, people have been reaching out to us with some of the stories and whatnot. The House in Between, one of my friends from the show Ghost Hunters reached out to me for that case. And yeah, it's just kind of, the stories just kind of land in our lap. There's locations that we have on our radar that we like to go and check out, and
Like a dream list.
mhm.
But for the
yeah,
most part, every documentary has turned out because we were invited. And if we
yeah.
were invited usually by someone who knows the paranormal already, and they know for a fact, hey, this one has evidence and this evidence looks really promising, you should check it out. And that's how it starts. And then we go check it out, and it just happens.
That's, I mean, I guess that makes sense, right? You go to the places where stuff happens and you were able to kind of like document it. You bring your equipment, bring your expertise to there and see, what is happening. Kind of related to that, I imagine there are maybe some investigations you do that you don't film, or do you always kind of like set up your equipment with the idea that you're going to film this either for your own records or to make something after the fact? How do you decide, like, which ones you're going to film, which ones you're going to go kind of like all in on, and which ones you're just going to maybe like check out and see what you find?
So yeah, this is actually one of those cases. The hunting lodge, we just kind of went to go see what it was all about. The stories were interesting. Nobody's ever investigated there, so we kind of took a huge risk because there wasn't any evidence. It was all stories about these hunters and John John sent us a lot of photos and some video that he took of the spot, but it was more of us just kind of being curious, having a feeling, and just getting over there, getting in the car and driving and setting up some gear and stuff. And
it was weird because in the beginning we asked what are the claims, and they said, well, all the hunters are really scared and they hear footsteps. So in the beginning we were like, footsteps, well, we already know that audio is extremely difficult to be captured. But we took a big risk because in my mind I was like, well, why are hunters scared? Hunters shouldn't be scared because of footsteps. And I had a feeling that they weren't really telling the whole story. And to my surprise, I was right. And I almost regretted going there at some point.
Yeah, there's some wild stuff that happens while you are there that you probably did not expect, because like you said, you didn't have a ton of information on what was happening. So
no.
And what I always love in these documentaries is like the kind of like Avengers Assemble, I kind of call it, where you've got like a whole bunch of different paranormal investigators and experts coming together for this bigger project. This one is a more limited cast. I understand that was maybe because it was COVID and so you couldn't like have a giant gathering. But how do you decide like who to bring in for these investigations? I'm sure you have a pretty big Rolodex of other paranormal investigators and experts. How do you decide like who is going to come in and contribute to this overall case?
Go ahead, Vera.
Well, one of the main factors will be obvious location.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Hey, can you come down here? Is a great question.
We know quite a bit of people in certain areas. So we're gonna be on the East Coast. Who's in the East Coast? Obviously, the person who called us. We would love to include them somehow. Especially if they've been there already. They already talked to the owner. They have a relationship. We were recently called to overseas to do a project, and it was through that person who called us that we got to meet the owner, and the owner didn't speak the language, the English, so she was supposed to have to be translator, and we were like, should we do that? I mean, it's a big challenge, and it's still up in the air. We're not sure yet. That's another story. But just to give an example, we love to include the person that invites us in telling the story. To honor that, because they invited us, and they were really hard. They were really hard. As far as somebody else, well, we have a team of people that we know, but also I'm glad you mentioned that COVID area, because for instance, when we filmed the Sleepless Unrest, we wanted to do so much more, tell many more stories. We wanted to have the neighbors over. We wanted to have Andrea Parent, but COVID, it was in the middle of COVID, and we couldn't, and that's why it was so limited. And as far as we could go. And then Hunting Lodge is the same. We filmed those two around the same time.
As far as bringing people in, it's kind of like who is the best for the case, if
that one too.
For this case, we didn't really have much information on the house or any paranormal activity evidence at all. So we thought it was a good idea to possibly bring in a psychic and see what kind of reading she might have a cold reading there.
Also the historian. He was a huge part of this one, because we were starting from scratch. We had no idea what we were dealing with, and he was a gigantic help.
Yeah, no, that all makes sense, especially like you said, you're unfamiliar with this area. So a historian and a psychic both feel like good people to kind of flesh out what is going on. And yeah, the COVID thing was interesting to me. I was talking to Kendall a little bit before you joined, Vera, but yeah, I wasn't sure, but I saw masks and I saw like a timestamp of like 2020. I was like, oh, like that does make sense. That does kind of explain, why this is a little smaller investigation, why it's a perfect place to go out and film remotely, right? Like if you're worried about lockdown, well, let's go to some place far away where no one's around and see what happens. That's kind of a great use of your time.
No, just quickly, Jed, I just want to mention real quick, the people in the town were so helpful. So helpful. They all knew what we were doing. They all wanted to tell their stories. And I also love to talk to people around the house, not just people directly affected by the house. And we got really lucky with that. Everybody was so friendly and so helpful.
And so I'm just curious, like, paranormal investigator, that is an interesting kind of like hobby or job or whatever you want to call it. Like, how did you get started in this? Were you always kind of interested in the supernatural and the paranormal, or was there some specific thing that happened that kind of like caused you to explore this more? I'm curious for each of you. I guess we'll start with Vera, and then see what Kendall has to say as well.
I have a long story, but
All right, let's go.
Short.
Story time.
Well, I grew up basically listening to ghost stories. I'm not sure that it was related to my culture necessarily. It was more related to the fact that my mother had a super profound paranormal experience when she was 15. And my father in his house, I guess they were around the same neighborhood, which now I'm thinking maybe that's part of why they think something was going on in their house. And both of their homes, they're both high school sweethearts, so they were around the same age, they live in the same neighborhood. So I grew up listening to the stories from my aunts, uncles, my mom, dad, and I was always fascinated by the reaction and how they wouldn't talk to nobody else about it. It was always among themselves. And part of me was like, are they trying to scare the kids, or does this really happen? So that's when my curiosity started. And then I started doing my own research, just kind of also to validate my parents' story. Are they telling scary stories just to tell scary stories, or are they really, this stuff is really real? And as we got older, I took a period when I wasn't really looking into it when I was a teenager and just high school. But then later I lost my father, and I had a really profound experience with him after he passed away. And that's what really changed my life, because now, if somebody was going to try to communicate, it would have been him. So now I have all these questions. Is this real? Am I just mourning? And I started researching. And then I found out that TV show Ghost Hunters. And at that moment, I don't know where they were running this casting process for Ghost Hunters Academy. So I got excited and I thought, an academy, I can learn there. They're going to teach me to see my dad is really trying to talk to me. So I want to talk to him, because when he passed away, I couldn't say goodbye to him. So I never had closure. I go to this academy, and it wasn't an academy. It was a reality TV show. Totally disappointed with that one. But I learned a lot of things. I learned from the best paranormal investigators in the world. I got to meet a lot of new friends, and I learned the production side of things, which I fell in love with. And then I also met Kendall. So later on, I don't know what, a year later after we met, we got married, I think.
So you're saying it could have been like another reality show, like it could have been started as Ghost Hunters and then like a dating show after that, right? They could have built that for a while.
I know. So that's in short my
Exactly.
story, my process on how I ended up doing this. And then later on we created Robot Ninja, and that's what we're doing. So
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. No, that's a great story, and that makes perfect sense why like you would always be interested in then a profound event to cause you to really kind of dig in to kind of learn more and see what is out there. That makes perfect sense. So thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My story was very similar to Vera's. I was into the paranormal quite a while ago when I was young, and I would, that's what we talked about when we were at family gatherings, and we'd always listen to my parents talking about what was happening at my uncle's house, and my cousin and I would play the Ouija board, and there was no such thing really as like going out investigating, or I didn't really know about it. So but later on, when I graduated high school, I moved out to Colorado to pursue snowboarding, and I moved up in the mountains into an old house that I later found out was an old hospital.
Oh gosh.
the first day I moved in there, my roommate and I started having paranormal activity happening there. And we just had these experiences.
All the typical claims, like the wind, the noise, the static on the TV. I love your story.
Dishes being thrown, like it was wild. It's very mischievous. So, you know, it was just kind of like my reassurance that that there was something, you know, I had some experiences when I was young, but this was just kind of like, okay, this stuff is happening. I can't explain it. It's very interesting. But it wasn't until later on that I moved to LA and I was pursuing filming and trying to actually shoot music videos and stuff. I got into trying to shoot music videos when I actually answered a Craigslist for ghost hunters, gearing up fast, and I'll never forget it. I applied for the job, and a week later I was out on location filming Ghost Hunters season 2. And yeah, it's just, I mean, that changed my life, that answering that Craigslist ad. You know, I'd be with the show for, gosh, 15 years or so, I don't know, just forever. I stayed on it forever, became the director of photography on the show, was, you know, learned from the best, met Vera, and yeah, just my love for the paranormal continues. I mean, it just gets stronger and stronger, and you know, the more we document and the more we kind of capture this interesting evidence, it just the more I get it, I get hooked into it. I just can't wait to do it more and more. It's I can't explain it. It just is, you know, I want to find out what's going on. I want to document this stuff. So, you know, I'll probably do this the rest of my life.
We probably will. And it's also interesting. You mentioned earlier, was it a hobby? How did you get started? And now that I think about it, just listening to us talking, Kendall, I don't think it has ever been a hobby. Has always been a job.
Yeah.
You know, it's always been a job. And it became more as we go along, it becomes more of a job because now we're doing this for a living.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I also love the moral of the story, like, answer Craigslist ads, be on reality TV show.
You never know what's gonna take
have
you.
your dreams. Like, that is not.
Yeah, you got to be careful now. You'll end up somewhere crazy.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you both ended up somewhere crazy, but it worked out pretty well. So
yeah, very true. Yeah.
So one of the things I love about, you know, these documentaries is like some of the equipment that you use. I was just curious, like, if we could get some more information, like about some of the specific pieces that were in there and like what they look for. Like the EP meter, it looks for like changes in like pressure and temperature, or what is that specifically monitoring?
Yeah, so we had a couple EMF detectors in there. That is fluctuations in the electromagnetic field. So anything that disrupts the natural magnetic field of an area, you'll get a spike on the meter. So essentially the theory is that
hypotheses.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, thank you. The hypotheses of the you know, the spikes on the meter is that potential entities or whatever you have it pull energy, or you know, they fluctuate the magnetic field from whatever they're doing to manifest or to communicate, and that's what pings our EMF detectors.
Oh, that makes sense. What about the like multicolored detector at the end? It looks almost like a sweet like rave light. I love that thing. That was
I
really
did
cool.
too.
I was like, I wanted to go off all the time. I wanted to see all these really cool colors.
Yeah, that's the Paralight, and we just started working with that on that case. It's also an EMF detector. It's another way to, you know, detect fluctuations in the electromagnetic field. That one's interesting because some meters are more sensitive than others. You can set some meters off by just, you know, walking near it with a phone, or you know, any kind of, like, if you put a meter near a microwave and you turn the microwave on,
or walkies,
car keys or walkies, you know, sometimes like some meters will false positive for you. But this meter in particular, I thought it was broken because it never went off. Like I'd be like, I don't even know if this thing works, you know. So the sensitivity on that was designed to be, you know, a lower sensitivity, I guess. And so when it went off, it surprised all of us.
I think that's why our reaction was so dramatic as well. Not so much like something is touching it. It was, well, that thing works, you know.
Because you know, it would have taken a lot of energy to set that thing off. So it was exciting for us.
Yeah, for sure. No, you can see your reactions on the screen, and the, you know, I guess showpiece equipment that you had, the like night vision camera. you said it was looking for photon events. Is it looking for like light? Is it looking for other waves that are like not in the visible spectrum? What is that specifically monitoring for?
Yeah, so the camera will first off, the sensor in the camera is very sensitive. You don't need any light. It's just starlight. So
Oh wow.
a little bit of moon, a little bit of ambient light from the stars, anything that that the light, it sees better than the human eye. So you have that aspect, which is great because using IR cameras, I've worked with them for many, many years, and sometimes you get reflections off of stuff. Sometimes you get anything IR is gonna
Shadows.
shadows. You'll get shadows from the camera. So this is great because the camera isn't emitting any light. So the bounce back when you shoot a light out, sometimes you have reflection and bounce back. There's no reflection coming back at the camera. So essentially, any kind of light that comes in view of that camera is a light being emitted. If that makes sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
This camera also detects photon events, and it pixel maps the photon event, and it will find it, and it basically it alerts you to a photon event. So a photon event is essentially like a fluctuation in the magnetic field of like an EMF detector, but this will show visible photons. This camera is used for
Scientific research
like scientific research, for photosynthesis, for what do they use it for? The currency, like fraudulent currency. What do they call that? Counterfeit. They'll use it for counterfeit. They'll use it for microscopes. We actually bought the cameras from Raytheon, so that they were using those, and it's neat. I learned of the technology from Brandon Elvis. We used it on ghost hunters, and Vera and I were able to get a couple cameras, and been really excited about working with them.
Yeah, no, that's really cool, and I love that. Like, this camera has multiple purposes, and you have used it for your own specific investigations, and kind of realize how it could be useful for that. That is really cool, and also just
that's what he does. He adapts stuff because there's no equipment
I love
for
cameras.
what we do. There's really nobody really making things for us to do our research. So we gotta adapt to what's available.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I don't, I wasn't sure where you got this stuff from, because there's not like a catalog, right? Like
Right.
you just kind of have to like repurpose or kind of figure out how something can be used in this context as well.
Yeah, especially within our budget. There's other stuff
the budget of an indie
it's very
filmmaker.
expensive, but yeah, we do what we can.
That's awesome. So one thing I was curious about, like, you did this investigation, you had all this evidence, these experiences. Are you ever going to go back to the lodge to do a follow-up, or is it kind of like you have to move on to new phenomena, new areas? I was just curious if like you're going to go back and do more research, because it seems like there was a lot happening in the time you were there.
Yeah, very good question. Yes, absolutely. We will go back. What happened at the hunting lodge there was very life-changing for Vera and I. I think it's a whole new kind of study for us because of the intelligent interaction happening there. We definitely want to document more, and we'd like to get people's views on it. I'd like to
We're gonna need help for this one.
Yeah, we're very excited.
It's not good enough for us to just show up. Okay, pretty lights that kind of seem like they're listening, they're intelligent. Okay, bye. Next. This one is like, no, we need to research a little deeper, and also to validate our experience. And that's important to me, just to validate that we actually did experience that. So the more research that we do, I think I feel better about it, especially because of what happened to me. And just try to look at it in a different eye, maybe not so scary, maybe just more neutral in emotions, just more open to the possibility. If this is really real, like, let's do it, let's document this. I mean, it is real for us, but I know how the audience can perceive that, like if this is really, really, really a phenomena that's there, then we should be able to replicate, repeat it, and actually make contact. I get nervous when I talk about it because it was so scary. Like, do I really want to?
Also, we have a better idea. That's the
I
thing. Also, to jump on that, like, we have a better idea what's going on there now because we had boots on the ground. We did this. We're going to be able to go back and know exactly what to throw at this. We're going to know.
We kept, it was 2 years ago. So just to, I'm not sure how much we're supposed to say, Kendall, but basically we have been researching.
Oh, cool.
We continue researching the topic, and we continue meeting people that have experienced the same things. We didn't stop there. So
no.
So
there'll be more.
I
More
think
is
that's
coming, as Jill says.
Yeah.
Quote Jill, more is coming.
Oh
And
yeah. I mean, yes, it's scary and
Yeah.
fascinating at the same time. So we probably going to announce this shortly that we're working on a follow-up for this.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah. And like to your point earlier, this was a COVID documentary, so you were limited in what you could do. So now,
Right.
Theoretically, we're past COVID. I'm sure it'll come back at some point, but at least a lot of the uncertainty is gone. So you could bring in, like you said, more people. You could have a more full investigation and kind of see what happens. So
absolutely.
And what does the owner Dan say? How does he feel about this coming out? I assume he was very supportive. He seems supportive in the movie, but how does he feel about this coming out? Is he excited? Is he like worried that this is going to? I guess it'll probably cause more tourism. But like, how are his feelings about this?
Yeah, Dan's a really great guy, man. He invited us in with open arms and an open mind. So, he's been great through the process. We let him know a lot of the activity happening there. And, it wasn't until we dug in deeper into the edit that we found some of the evidence. But yeah, I mean, he has a pretty good idea what's going on.
I think he knows. We didn't tell him everything. We did tell him the door open. We told him like the basics, that what happened. But I think he knew more because he keeps saying, I'm curious if you're going to be able to document. I'm curious if you're going to be able to catch what's going on here. So, you say that if you already know that something is happening, because, he had hunters for 12 years telling him the same story, detailed things. And, every year, different set of hunters that would come over and tell him this thing. So I think the last time we spoke, he was excited. He was he said, I can wait. But he was also nervous. We asked him, are you going to open this to the public? And he's not sure. He doesn't think so. I don't think he's looking for that. I think he really wanted to find validation to tell the hunters that for himself, I guess, as well.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. And also, he has something I don't have, which is he has an IMDb credit. So, good on him. He gets one day I will get one. I just have to buy more decrepit haunted houses, I guess.
We'll have to have you come out with us.
Are you an investigator?
No, I'm an amateur critic, but something for the future, maybe.
Oh,
awesome.
So I know we have limited time. I'm going to switch to, I call it the lightning round. There's really lightweight questions about the film. I want to see how your personal experiences map to the movie. This one, there will probably be a lot of personal experiences because this is, your documentary, but you can feel free to pass on any of them. I will not be offended, but I try to keep them very answerable. First question, I think, Vera, you might have already talked about this. You might have both, but the first question was, what is your earliest supernatural experience that you can kind of remember?
Earliest.
You can pass if there's too many, or maybe there's like nothing like crystallized in your head.
No, I mean I have earliest. That's to my childhood. I gotta go back in the attic, like memory.
No worries.
Kendall, take it for now. Let me think.
I think mine would be the Ouija board with my cousin.
Oh, nice.
That thing kind of moving and us swearing that we both didn't move it. That's kind of weird. And then I guess gosh, profound experience would be when I moved into that place in Fairplay, Colorado. The old hospital, and had the first night I was there, I had a huge gust of wind go over my face, and there was no doors or windows or anything open. So
that sounds freaky. That makes perfect sense.
I think for me it's more, I don't think it's a ghost. I cannot really recall that I ever seen a ghost. I'm trying to think or anything like that. I've heard voices sometimes. They're like audible. They're just, why are you like, just very random, just words or I don't know, like somebody talking and nobody's there. And you're like, okay, this is creepy. But I remember the one that really, really affected me was, I think I saw a UFO when I was 7 years old.
Oh, wow.
And it was way back then when nobody was even talking about it. It was nothing. And it was basically what they're showing now is a little light that was going like in a zigzag, and then it stopped. And it's weird because I almost got a sense that they knew that I saw him, and because it stopped, and I was like almost like an awareness. It was so weird. And then it boom, just up and disappear, and that scared me so bad.
Understandably so. That makes perfect sense. You should be scared.
Yeah, but as far as other paranormal, again, I just grew up listening to the stories. I don't think as a child, I don't think I experienced anything as a child until like when my father passed away. Yeah.
Perfect. Both good intros into why you got interested in the supernatural. That makes perfect sense. You actually answered the next question, kind of. Have you ever either like seen a ghost? I know you both experience and see phenomena, but have you ever like seen a ghost in your work or personal life?
No.
Yeah. I've never seen like a physical, like a full body physical ghost of some sort. Now, I was on Ghost Hunters once, and I was standing next to one of the investigators, Dave Tango, and we both tracked this light anomaly down the stairs and to the left. And that was very interesting. I still can't explain that. So it's like little things like that I've witnessed, but nothing, physically right there, like the typical story of somebody there 1 second. Yeah, full body.
Yeah, which I think that is where like some of these documentaries are important, because like I go in thinking, okay, there's going to be just like spirits everywhere and like chairs flying, and in your investigations it's much more subtle than that. It is, like you said, like little subtle changes in the EMF or little lights and things like that. So
well, there's people who claim to have seen them. There's people who had full conversations with people that looked like you and I, and then they find out that they were already passed, they were gone. Like I personally know people with those stories. So I don't know. But as far as like popular culture says, the ghostly image or the transparent figure, Kendall and I've done it. I mean, for a long time. You've done over 600 locations, Kendall, and we have not seen that.
Yeah. Well, maybe someday. Maybe that's maybe when you go back to the lodge. Maybe but doesn't seem likely. But yeah,
I'm okay. I'm okay if we don't.
That makes sense. So I know you all are focused more on like the supernatural, but have you ever investigated like cryptids, like I don't know, like Bigfoot or Loch Ness Monster or anything of that nature? Or are you more kind of, is your specialty and kind of interest in like the beyond?
I love everything supernatural, strange, cryptid, anything unexplainable that we could research, anything where I can go and interview people. I just want to tell their stories. Just because I watch my parents telling their stories, and my grandpa was like a treasure hunter, and he did it. He would only go and dig when he heard there was a ghost story, because he believed that there was a treasure. So I grew up listening to the stories. So I'm fascinated with documenting people's stories, because my family's stories are gonna be gone, and nobody's gonna ever. They're not documented. So I think to answer quickly, that's my passion. I just want to tell people stories. So whatever it is, Bigfoot, UFO, whatever it is.
I'm right there with Vera.
Perfect. And Vera, you might have some psychic abilities, because that is actually my next question was, do you have any cursed artifacts? Your grandfather's story is kind of related to that.
You say like artifacts?
Like cursed or haunted objects or things like that.
I try not to.
That makes sense.
We sent all those back.
If we come across with anything, I actually send them to our friends at Tori and Cody, who have a paranormal museum. And we already said we're gonna send it to them. They can take care of them, and they're okay with that. We have kids at home. We don't want them to grow up looking at creepy things, and no.
Yeah, and with both of your experiences, you don't want to risk, bringing something back, right? That makes perfect sense.
Right.
Um, so the next question: Do you either of you have you ever like bought a like haunted property or some sort of like haunted area? Just out of curiosity for your own investigations.
No, that would be cool, but
No, no.
I think it would be cool, but then what happens if you buy it and then nothing happens? You're like, oh, like the reason we bought this.
yeah, I don't think we would.
Yeah, we like our house too much, or like we like disconnecting from our work as much as we can.
Yeah, that makes sense. You don't want to have your work become your full life. That would make it probably lose some of its luster. You'd be more annoyed with the ghost rather than like trying to like make contact with them. Um, and next question is for this is a hunting lodge. Have either of you ever been hunting?
I
haven't.
I did when I was probably 11, and I killed this rabbit, and it was a terrible experience for me. And it was like, I was like, okay, I guess I don't like hunting. So yeah, ever since then, I don't hunt, but yeah.
That makes sense. One of the kind of fears in this was not supernatural. It was actual boars. Have either of you ever encountered a boar, seen a boar in the wild?
Yeah, I have. I filmed people hunting in Hawaii. They were hunting a boar for a ceremony, and it was pretty wild. It was very wild. Like they had the full chase and the dogs, and it was very honorable. It was a very honorable kill, and it was a definitely quite the experience. But yeah, that was an interesting film shoot that day.
I haven't, and I'm glad I didn't, because apparently we were surrounded by boars where we were investigating. I had no idea. That's why Dane got his gun when we went to the unmarked grave. Not because he was afraid of a ghost or anything. He was afraid that we were gonna get chased by boars. That's why he brought the gun.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And so one thing that really struck me in this film was like when you were outside filming, like it was just like pitch black, like remote. What is like the most remote place that you have been to? Maybe it was this lodge, but I assume you probably have been to even more remote places in your work or life.
Yeah, for me, it would have been Alaska, on an island in Alaska. Alcatraz, in the basement of Alcatraz. That was crazy.
That's pretty remote.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I've been a castle in Ireland.
I've been remote. I've been in the middle of the desert in a little tiny town with like maybe 50 population. I don't know. My mother was doing her social service after medical school, and we wanted to go visit her, and it was in the middle of nowhere. Like you go through the desert and then there's this town. They had a well, and she was just taking care of people there. But it was, I'm telling you, no light anywhere. The most beautiful stars I've ever seen in my whole life. I don't know if it was haunted. Could have been. I don't know. I was 17, but that's the most remote place I've been.
All those sound like fascinating places and places I'd love to see documented. But yeah, the no lights with all the beautiful stars sounds really, really pretty. And the last question: Have you ever, both of you, have you ever dressed up as Ed and Lorraine Warren for like Halloween? Because I imagine that would be perfect.
That would be fun. What an honor. Yeah. Wow. I wonder. It's probably gonna happen at some point.
we did the Ghostbusters, was it last year? Yeah, it was last year.
2 years ago. Yeah, or little boy with the marshmallow man.
Yeah.
That is a very fitting costume. That makes perfect sense. So the movie is out on October 17th, 2023, yesterday actually. So it's out now. Yeah. You can see it digitally and on demand. You've already mentioned a few projects in the works. So after people see The Haunting Lodge, maybe go back and check out your previous work, The House in Between 1 and 2 and Sleepless, Unrest. What can they look for next from you all?
Yeah, we'll be continuing documentaries for as long as we can do them. And yeah, we got a bunch of projects in the works. Best way to kind of keep on us and follow our projects and everything, go to robotninjamedia.com and just sign up your email or just check it out. We got all our projects over there.
And it's
Very
basically
nice.
just for them to keep in touch. We don't
Yeah.
we don't send you emails like crazy. It's just to announce, hey, we got a new film coming out.
Yeah,
Or, hey,
whenever
we got
we-
this
yeah.
location, etc. Just simple.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you can go check on that, follow up to see where else Kendall and Vera go. But before that, check out the Haunting Lodge. It comes out on digital on demand October 17th, 2023. There's the directors and stars, Kendall and Vera Whelpton. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you
It was
for
a
having
pleasure
us. It was-
talking to you.
That was Kendall and Vera Whelpton talking about the Haunting Lodge, which comes to digital on demand on October 17th, 2023. It is an investigation into this previously uninvestigated hunting lodge that seems to have some supernatural energy, some weird happenings, and Kendall and Vera bring their expertise and their equipment to figure out what is going on. It has some cool equipment and some pretty kind of exciting scenes. If you liked this interview, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.